Yeah, happy Monday morning. Welcome into Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley alongside Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Hope everybody had a fabulous weekend outside of the football that continues to be played around here. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Happy basketball season, in case anybody didn't notice, because
Yes.
it's basketball season.
Apparently it is.
I've been saying that for a while, but now it's basketball season.
It may officially be basketball season. Nick Keyser, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's turkey season as well, so I cannot complain about good family gatherings, and you can at least play your own version of Titans football in the backyard this week.
You might score more touchdowns than
There
they
you
will.
go.
I would say so. Maybe more than Jeffrey Simmons.
Although, Joe, they did, anytime you go on the road and double up your season total of touchdowns, that's something positive's got to be said for that. I guess that's good.
That is right. That is fair. I mean, your QB had like a 143 rating. There's plenty of positives to draw from yesterday.
I'm just now seeing that. Yes, he did have a 143 rating. Talk about quarterback ratings being deceiving a little bit based on the way a game went down. 34-14, the final yesterday for the Titans. A loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. At one point, Joe, it was 27-0 in that game, and I was like, can the Jags, are they going to get to like 40? Is it going to be like 41-0 that we have to come in and talk about the next day? And then the Titans found some life offensively. Nice trick play from Will Levis to DeAndre Hopkins down the field. Jeffrey Simmons catches a touchdown pass, which was fun yesterday. That's probably the most fun the Titans offense has been on the road all year, just that one play to Jeffrey Simmons. But other than that, more of the same for the Titans. They give up 34 to Jacksonville. They lose by 20. They score fewer than 16 points again on the road, and their points per game for the season continues to dwindle down. And now at 3-7 and 0-6 on the road, Joe, any conversation that you want to have about getting back into a playoff race or back into a divisional race or competing for a wild card spot, I mean, you can pretty much flush that down the toilet now. It's over. It's a bad football team. They're 3-14 in the last 17 games, and just more of the same from the Titans yesterday against Jacksonville, who at one point was just totally annihilating them, and then the Titans scored a couple of garbage time touchdowns.
Yeah, an underrated complaint I have since you brought up those TDs, like, don't use trick plays that work in garbage time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? like the Jeffrey Simmons TD. What if it was, a one-score game or early in the game? I understand they didn't score, but I'm just saying, like if you get that done early, that's a momentum thing, right? Like people are pumped. Like you get the sideline on fire. In this, it was kind of like, so do we have fun with this or just sort of like, what do you do?
Jeffrey Simmons scored a touchdown. That's fun.
Actually, Caroline Fenton had the best absolute tweet. Oh my gosh, did you see her tweet?
I don't think so.
So this was about, or I think it was about this, like I'm trying to find. Yeah, here you go. Celebrating that beautiful TD pass and catch down 27-7. And it's like a young woman like dancing with a bunch of friends, but also crying.
Oh yes, I did see that. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
it's
like what do you do when this? It's like when you dunk on someone down 20 with a minute left.
Yeah.
Like you posterize someone and you're just like, so how do you act? I mean, you can talk trash if you want, but the Titans, we can stop talking about the importance of a game. There's no more reason to talk about the importance of a game.
No.
And Paul Kaharski introduced yesterday, although frankly, I mean, I don't think it's a big storyline at this point, but you know what? 3 wins in 17 games. Kaharski started the "Are you worried about your job security?" narrative yesterday. So things are changing.
Things are changing, and it's clear that this team is terrible. Now they're taking on Carolina next week, and the Titans are actually favored in this game coming up. So take a screenshot of that because it might be one of the last times this year that they are favored in a football game coming up. But it's just it was just more of the same, more terrible football yesterday from the Titans, and they couldn't get anything done offensively for the majority of the game. You look at the running game, and outside of an explosive play by Chris Moore on kind of an end around there. There's nothing going in the running game yesterday for the Titans. Derrick Henry ends up 10 carries for 38 yards, Spears 4 carries for 14 yards, and Will Levis ended up with credited with 4 carries for 2 yards. Just nothing going in the running game. In the passing game, Will Levis only threw the ball 17 times all day yesterday. The Titans barely had the ball and didn't do anything with it when they had it. And then on the defensive side of things, I mean, they made Calvin Ridley look like a stud yesterday. And Ridley, he's had a couple of good games this year, but it's been pretty up and down with him and really that entire offense. And Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, 24-32, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 119.5 yesterday. They ran for 128 yards as well. It's just total destruction by a Jacksonville team that is a good team, Joe. They've not been good at home, and their offense has been extremely inconsistent, and they did pretty much whatever they wanted to do yesterday against the Titans.
Yeah, it was dominant, and it was just, I think the big thing you see yesterday is, again, just – and Simmons did make a couple loud plays.
Yep.
But just really not nearly enough from that front. 69 plays for the Jags, 38 plays for the Titans. The Titans have more per play. Is that right? Am I seeing that right? Yeah. Titans had 6.2 per play. The Jags 5.6. But
get excited
when they W up. That's not gonna go well for you. And obviously, those numbers get inflated. You get the 43-yarder to Hopkins, the 49-yarder to Moore. That's the game is completely over at that point. You take those away, and you're talking about what, 70 passing yards?
Yeah.
On the day. Just nothing happening at all. And the defensive front is the most disappointing thing on a weekly basis. But like yesterday, you got what, 2 QB hits, you got a sack from Edmonds. But the offensive line is also the consistently worst thing about this team.
It is, and you look at the numbers, and Levis was only sacked twice yesterday, and only had 5 quarterback hits. But Joe, when you look at the dropbacks and realize they only had 17 passing attempts yesterday. There weren't a ton of opportunities for Jacksonville to hit the quarterback, and they still hit him 5 times yesterday. So, I guess there are some that will say, hey, look, he didn't get hit 13 times. Some improvement from the Titans' offensive line, but that would be a little bit deceiving.
Well, if part of the story of this season now, and it is keeping him healthy, one way is to not let him have the ball so that people can't hit him as much. So
bold strategy,
mission accomplished. Yeah. Yeah. So we're finding all kinds of positives already today on the program. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's
very excited.
Very exciting time for Titans fans, I'm sure. It is amazing. And, we've talked up and down about how terrible they've been for the past calendar year, and now you've dropped to 3-14 in your last 17 games. They flashed the graphic up yesterday, kind of from the middle of last year, the different ways this team has gone. So Titans are 7-3, Jags are 3-7, and since then, Titans have now fallen into 3-14, and the Jags are 13-4. Just almost the complete opposite directions that these two teams have gone, and it's really incredible. Like when you not only the Titans part of this, but also the Jags part of this, how bad they were and how good they've been since then, and then the Titans have just gone completely the other way. When you see it side by side, the way that the CBS broadcast laid it out yesterday, it's pretty incredible.
And it's really not a fluke,
no.
Right? It accurately reflects. I guess there's you can, like you said, the Jags have been good. Are the Jags really are the Jags a 13-4 kind of football team as we look at them? Because a 13-4 kind of football team is a contending team to me. I don't know, but they're good. They're much better than the Titans, and the Titans, of course, are one of the worst teams in the NFL. So it's amazing. It's like just complete flip of fortunes after many years of the Titans being solid to excellent, the Jags being mostly trash. And the Titans are right now the absolute worst team in the AFC South, which I definitely did not anticipate this season.
Well, and it's not
even
close.
close.
Yeah, it's not close. Like Jacksonville is way better than they are. Houston at this point, the way that they're playing right now, is way better than they are. Indy's not great, but Indy is better than they are. I mean, Indy is a better football team than the Titans are. And it's wild how drastic the difference is right now, especially from the top, like with Jacksonville and Houston to this football team. As I'm watching them play yesterday, Joe, and everybody, that probably is a little bit hyperbolic and takes things a little bit too far. But I did wonder when they were down 27-0 yesterday. I was like, is this the worst team in the league? Like, I know Carolina's bad, and obviously New England's bad.
We're gonna find out,
and we're getting ready to find out when they play Carolina. I'm sure that all the NFL fans are fired up for Titans and Carolina coming up this weekend. But it's just like with the way the offensive line is, the lack of weapons they have offensively, a defense that is not terrible, but it's been disappointing this year. I don't think they're the worst, but they are certainly among the worst teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah, top 5, I think.
Top 5.
I think they've got, and that's pretty amazing. I mean, there is a special place for the Chicago Bears, who
there are.
The fact that I would ever send a tweet out that reflects belief that the Bears are not going to completely poop themselves and win a game that they had a 98.2% chance of winning with 4 minutes left.
They did.
Shows you how dumb I am. They're special. Arizona. The funny thing is, Arizona actually had a great chance to win at Houston yesterday. But that's
Arizona's better than they are right now with Kyler Murray back.
Yeah, with Kyler Murray in there.
Yeah,
with Kyler Murray in there. I would say that Patriots, they're right there. I mean, the Patriots cronies are together fighting for absolute futility. Like I said, the Panthers. Yeah, I mean, I think that. I mean, shoot, the Rams won at Seattle yesterday. I mean, everybody has some redeeming qualities.
Honestly, for the Titans yesterday, if you are fully into, tank mode and trying to get the highest draft pick you can get if you're a Titans fan, it was a pretty good day for you yesterday. I mean, the Rams won, the Packers won, and the Titans now have according to tankathon.com, Joe, currently hold the number 6 overall pick. They're moving on up the draft board.
Okay, sorry. I've got this. What the heck? I apologize. My computer just is throwing me this. Your Windows is infected with 5 viruses thing. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. That's not good. Hopefully it's not infected with viruses. And that's how we begin the show. Rexrode is under attack.
God.
The Titans were under attack all day long yesterday. And down there in Jacksonville, we'll take your thoughts. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. The Titans get destroyed by the Jags. Tennessee gets steamrolled by Georgia. We'll get into that a little bit later in the program, too. We'll continue the conversation on the Titans coming up next. Are they among the worst teams in the NFL? Who's worse than the Tennessee Titans right now? We'll get into all that. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our 102.5 The Game studio, brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I got some tickets to give away to see Earth, Wind, and Fire and Chicago at Bridgestone Arena coming up on August 20th. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller number 5 will win a pair of tickets to see Earth, Wind, and Fire and Chicago at Bridgestone Arena coming up on August the 20th. 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode still with us. He came under attack in the last segment. I got a text that says Joe has the Titans offensive line as his virus blocker. Very well done. Very well done on the text line. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, I think it was fake. That's good. So I just X'd out of the website, and it had a weird, it said McAfee, but I didn't like the web address didn't say McAfee.
Yeah.
It said system blah blah blah. So I think it was BS.
I think you're correct.
We'll hope I stay with you today. Speaking of the text line, I do want to address this, and I knew it'd be quick from our friend Ron, and boy did he get ready. Ron got in there at 6 a.m. exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Ron made sure to register his comment at the exact start of the show, and he says, "So Joe, you want this team to keep trying or join my undercover tank club? Believe me, Joe, I want to see this team be competitive and win games, but not this year, not now. Let's go for the high picks, like I said 3 weeks ago. If you want a membership, just let me know. I'll give you a VIP pass. Volunteer in pooping for the rest of the season. Maybe my dream will come true." So again, Ron, first of all, I tweeted this yesterday along with my tweet about making fun of the Lions. Yes, William from Madison. I actually tweeted the Lions lost and made fun of them, and then I ate it. So
you did.
I'm just gonna shut up about the Lions now, especially when they play the freaking Bears. Okay, this is the point though, Ron, and I know you know the point, but the point is, first of all, before when there was still any chance of anything, I never understood like a fan, rooting for a team to lose when they're trying to win and, you could still get in the playoffs. I absolutely, every Titans fan in the world, root for them to lose. I mean, I can't argue with you now because there's no benefit to winning. I mean, I would think that you'd want still like some of the players to play well because some of them will be part of your team, in particular the quarterback, right?
Yep.
If the quarterback plays well and let's say Will Levis has a couple game-winning drives, isn't that good? Like he's learning how to win late in games, learning how to run a 2-minute and get the ball into the end zone. That would cost you draft positioning, but I think that would be a positive, right?
Yeah. Okay,
but fine, whatever. You can root for it. My whole point all along has been like, don't expect these guys to to fank. Now if they switch to Malik Willis, then that the fank is on. But and that's one of the things I love about this league is that they're not going to do that. They're going to go out there and they may not have the absolute intensity that winning teams have, but they're going to go out there and still try to win, whether you like it or not.
Also, if this is them trying right now, you should feel pretty good. If you're wanting them to if you're wanting them to tank, I'm with you. They're not going to tank, but if this is them trying, then you should be fine. If you want them to have a high draft spot, just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to go well for you. If you're in on some Titans L's, I think it's going to go well. Okay. Fair question here from Chuck. Robby, I just want to get to this because we're going to hear a lot of this, and it's fair. Chuck says, honestly, how did local media overestimate Titans' talent to this level? I was terribly wrong about this team, and we do kind of look collectively. I don't want to necessarily include everybody, but we kind of look like a bunch of homers.
We do.
When you look back at what we were, all the outside people. Now, again, let's go back to Charles Robinson, national media guy, friend of the show, friend of mine for a long time, comes into town, goes to camp and says, "Oh, damn, this team looks pretty good. Look at Spears out there. Look at Traylon Burks making it low. Okay, I can see it." I mean, that's what it was. I mean, seriously, a big part of it, and I don't want to isolate this to one player. We've talked about him enough anyway, right? But a big part of it was Burks.
Yep.
Looking like an absolute stud out there in tandem with Hopkins. And I'll say, look, Derrick Henry still very good, but that's the thing. Derrick Henry in camp doesn't get touched, right? There's he's just as big and fast as ever when you watch him run around camp. I mean, you can see where the mileage is piling up on him.
Well, look, one thing I don't know that it's taught me, but it's kind of reinforced is I'm not saying you take nothing away from training camp and nothing away from the preseason, but it's very limited in its value. And I think we're seeing that right now. It's very limited in its value in terms of what the takeaways for the actual football season actually mean. Obviously it's hard to sit here in August and predict injuries, but it's also not like the Titans have had like some litany of injuries that they've had to deal with this year either. I mean, they've been, for the most part, relatively healthy. They've been healthier than they have been. I'll put it that way. Now, Burks cannot get on the field, and that is very concerning moving forward here. But again, like if Treylon Burks is healthy the whole time, how much different is their record? I'm not convinced it's that much different than they are right now. They are just a bad football team, and they have holes everywhere. And some of this, Joe, is like players that we thought would play well have not played well and have not played as well as we thought they would and as well as we've seen them play in the past. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can really do but raise your hand and say, yep, screwed this one up. We were wrong about the Titans. No question about it.
Yeah, and it's totally fair to talk about like preseason practice and everything and how limited the preseason games 0, 0, 0, 0. I mean, I've been saying that forever, a daily, and that's where like the joint practices can give you a little glimpse of like a team's strengths and weaknesses. A big thing about the preseason was was the offensive line getting its butt kicked every day. And we were asking the question, what does that mean? Well, as it turns out, it means that that they are so bad that this very actually overrated defense like was destroying it.
Right.
Because that's where we overestimated this team by miles and miles. And look, it's not like out of the blue preseason we're like, oh, wow, that Jeff Simmons is pretty good, huh? Well, look at Danico Autry. I mean, those guys have been doing it on the field, big at a high level. You get Landry back. I think one of the big mirages, and you saw it again yesterday, the former Jaguars, Arden Key, right? I mean, there's an example of a camp hero who is a free agent signing who is just I don't know. I mean, I know he's out there.
I forgot he was playing. I'll be honest with you.
Him.
Like, I'm not kidding. I forgot he played, and that's not good. And the question we were throwing out there in camp of, all right, well, the Titans' offensive line is struggling, but they're going up against one of the best pass rushes, one of the best fronts in the NFL. So that should make them better, and that should help them out come regular season time. And then, fact of the matter is, the Titans' front is extremely overrated, and the Titans' offensive line is the worst offensive line in the NFL. And when you have those two factors, Joe, you don't really have much of a chance to win. And that's what we've seen. You're 3-7 for a reason, and it starts with that. If you're identifying and listing out reasons on the offensive side, it's because your line is terrible, and on the defensive side, your front, which is supposed to be the strength of your team, has not been the strength of your team, and that's how you end up with a 3-7 record.
Right. We were talking preseason. Okay, can you be average? The line certainly won't be worse, right? And that's one thing we were talking about. Dennis Daly's gone, so we know it'll be better. Can it be solid, average with a great defense? And instead, it's atrocious with a below average defense. There, and here we are.
Yep,
3-7.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. A lot more of your questions to get to on our text line. We'll do that coming up next. We'll also get into what Mike Vrabel had to say after the game yesterday, including a question about his job status. All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Do you think your job security is an issue, Mike, or going to be?
Oh, Paul, I don't try to concern myself with that. I really am focused on these players. I hurt for them. I played 14 years, won some games, won some championships. I am frustrated for the players. I'm disappointed for the players. I want them to have success. I know how hard they work and that they put into it. So that's what my focus is. My focus is on coaching this team, of trying to get these guys to understand that there's a fine line in this league of winning and losing, and finding a way to get a win. That's what I'm focused on. I'll let you guys, fire me each week or not fire me. I apologize. I appreciate your question. I do. I will always understand that. We have to improve and we have to win. Those are things that we have to do.
That was Mike Vrabel after the game yesterday. Titans lose again, 34-14 on the road to Jacksonville. They are 3-7 on the season, 3-14 in their last 17 games, Joe, dating back to last year. And that is obviously not a very good stretch of Titans football. And Mike Vrabel asked about his job status yesterday by Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. What did you make of Vrabel's answer to Paul's question there after the game?
Well, I'm a little surprised, but yeah, I mean, it's 3-7. It is 14-17, as we've discussed, as will be discussed all week. I just, the thing is, look, I look at it like I don't think it's really a storyline. I think the trade thing is. I think that's that's something that Amy Adams Strunk would could potentially see as a possibility and could see value in. The firing him thing, I think it's early for that. But again, just like we talked about the camp evaluations of this team, and you can go back to last year when people were talking about John Robinson getting fired. It's like, yeah, I mean, maybe they'll talk about it after the year. Well, we know what happened. So I suppose if you're Vrabel, you have to know that. Like, you don't know what Amy Adams Strunk is going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, none of these people in this league know what their owners are going to do. And that would be a ranking I'd love to see, is ownership in the NFL by unpredictability. And Amy Adams Strunk took a huge jump in the rankings last year from what I would have assumed would be way down the list. I will say, like, Vrabel was way too nice to Paul there, which tells me maybe he is worried.
Well,
like, how do you not? I mean, that's a great chance to unload on Paul, and he just I appreciate the question. What do you appreciate the question? Like, come on, you love giving that guy crap, and then he's nice to him, so maybe he is worried.
Well, look, I understand the conversation around this. I really do. Like, when you're 3-14 in the NFL in your last 17 games, the coach is going to get talked about this way. I mean, it just is. So I understand it.
Sure.
What I don't know, and what I would love to know, Joe, is how does Amy Adams Strunk feel about all this? And here's what I mean by that. Obviously, she doesn't want to lose. She's not happy with losing. So that part of it speaks for itself. I do wonder, like in the offseason, when they collectively made the decision to bring Ryan Tannehill back and to bring Derrick Henry back for another year and to try to have another kick at the can at this thing, was the conversation with Amy Adams Strunk something to the effect of, hey, look, I mean, this could be a little bit of a transition year. We're kind of in flux right now with the roster, and we're going to try to win as many games as we possibly can, but we don't know if we have the roster to really do that right now. Or was it, hey, we feel good about this team. We've addressed the offensive line. We've had what we think is a good draft. Tannehill's going to come back. He's going to be healthy. Derrick Henry's still here. And we've got a chance to get back in this thing, win the AFC South, and compete for a Super Bowl in the playoffs this year, which sounds laughable right now. I get that. But, like, what were the internal expectations, and what was the selling point to Amy Adams Strunk heading into this year? Because that's what I don't know. Because for all I know, Joe, she could be looking around today and saying, you guys told me you're going to be good this year. Like, you told me that Tannehill was coming back and Henry's coming back, and you went and signed DeAndre Hopkins to try and win it. Like, you told me you guys were going to be good, and this is what you are at 3-7. I have no idea what she's thinking, and obviously what she's thinking is the most important part of all this when it comes to the future of the coaching staff and all those things. So that's the answer that I don't have, Joe, that I would love to know, which is what exactly was sold to Amy Adams Strunk this offseason heading into this year, and how does that influence the way she's feeling right now?
No, it's absolutely, and you're dead on in that there's so much information that can inform, how she thinks about this, that I don't have the information. Those conversations, because look, I'll tell you this, we talk about Carthon Vrabel a lot, and we will more as we move forward. Who's doing this, who's doing that. I mean, logically, the conversation, like logically, you look at Rand Carthon coming in. I mean, again, even like the Byard pay cut, I don't think that was handled well, but I get it, right? I mean, if you're Rand Carthon coming into this team, you're probably looking at like, yeah, this team needs. I just came from the Niners. I know what like a championship roster looks like. This needs a lot of work. So the conversation around running it back, I do think has something to do with the market for Tannehill and Henry.
Yeah.
Which was not great, but still, I mean, you would think that would be more Vrabel arguing that side, right?
You would think.
And if that's the case, well, Vrabel won, obviously, and / Vrabel lost because it was, as it turns out, it was not the right way to go. So, there's that. There's, as we've talked about before, this roster is in terrible shape. How much Vrabel input had to do with that, because the thing is, you have to separate Mike Vrabel. I know people will groan because right now people are mad and people want blood, but Mike Vrabel is, to me, a proven good head coach in the NFL. Mike Vrabel is a talent evaluator. I mean, I don't know how much input he had on things, but there's nothing to believe that he's very good at that.
Right.
And so, this first offseason with this new arrangement was bad evaluations, So that's where it gets really interesting and just hard to decipher everything because I don't have all that information on how all these conversations went. I'm looking at this video that our buddy Andrew took of Amy Adams Strunk on the field with Carthon and his top two assistant GMs, and so I'm sure that was hey, how you doing? Yeah, everything's looking great. Hope it's like, let's not try to avoid seeing her after the game,
right?
And they look happy talking to each other there, but no, she can't be happy, and I don't blame her,
no,
at all, because you could have done different things and kind of gotten a head start on where things inevitably went.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough time right now, and that's the thing. Like, did she, in her heart of hearts, expect some of this year? Is it still easy to go back to the selling point if you're like Vrabel and Carthon and you're looking at all this and you're saying, well, I mean, you fired John Robinson last year because of the roster and how bad it was, and it's just going to take some time to recover from that. Like, is that still the way Amy Adams Strunk is thinking? Or if they end up going 4-13 here, or 5-12, or whatever it is they end up being, and it's not going to be very good, does she look around and say, you know what, it's time to make some wholesale changes? I don't know. I mean, I did, as we sit here today, Joe, on November the 20th, do I think that Mike Vrabel is going to be fired at the end of this year? No, I don't. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. We can get into the trade stuff, and that's a different conversation, but even separate from the trade stuff, I don't think that he's going to be fired. But I don't know that. I mean, like, at some point, when let's say they end up going like 5-12 this year, and you've won 5 games over your last like 20 games of football, 24, 25 games of football, that's a tough sell at some point, right? And as good of a coach as I still believe Vrabel is, the results are what they are right now. So I'm not going to totally dismiss that being a possibility at the end of the year. We've had a lot of questions on the text line so far, Joe, about coordinators and potentially them being fired. What do you make of that?
Well, I was just going to bring up, let's remember, not only did John Robinson get fired last year, but Todd Downing did as well.
Yep. And
the offensive line coach did as well. Is that just Mike Vrabel himself deciding that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll go back to last year after the Jacksonville game when yet again they had the last year people remember, excuse me, the narrative, the sort of the pattern of this team was that they would have good it wasn't a home and road thing. It was first half, second half, right?
Yeah.
And so I asked Vrabel a question about the second half, kind of big picture about the whole season, and he got really angry about it. Relative to Todd Downing, which to me kind of felt like, stop messing with Todd Downing kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I took it. Like he was mad that what that implied or what maybe ahead, because we all knew Todd Downing had to be on the hot seat. Well, he was fired. Is that just Vrabel deciding that? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, there are times like Mike Mularkey firing one of his best friends in life right after an embarrassing loss to the Houston Texans after a punt return beat him. I still firmly don't believe that Mike Mularkey just on his own just went, Bobby April, you're out of here.
Right,
These things happen. So it's another thing to consider for sure in terms of is there going to be someone needs to be held accountable kind of thing here. I think that Vrabel, like Mularkey, like a lot of coaches, does not want to sacrifice coaches and coordinators when things go poorly, but he just did. So to answer the question on these guys, look, I'm obviously the underachieving group is Shane Bowen's group, for sure. Tim Kelly in his first year as OC. Yeah, I said this about Todd Downing to some extent too, man. There is a certain amount of chicken salad that it's hard to make with the ingredients that you have. But I think if it goes totally circling the drain here, then I think you can consider anything a possibility.
Well, if it continues to go as poorly as it is right now, it's hard for me to imagine them getting through the end of the year and nothing happening. Like whether that's Vrabel or anything, like it's hard to imagine Amy Adams Strunk looking around and saying, "All right, I know you guys just went 5-12, but let's just run it back with the same entire coaching staff next year." It's hard for me to imagine that. Like that would if it keeps going the way it's going right now, I think it's at least going to cost Shane Bowen his job. I do.
It's possible. I mean, I can't, it's possible. And obviously, I think that the Jim Schwartz connection people are making, I think, is overrated. But, I mean, it is what it is. He was here doing whatever he was doing behind the scenes, and they were much better. And this was supposed to be a great defense, and nothing is working right there at all. So, look, I think all those things, of course, that's what this league is. We know that, and that's what this league is, including the head coach. It's all possible. And look, as someone pointed out, Rand, like you only traded Byard, for example, right? So It's like you were sort of it's like there's been a bunch of half measures, so you could look at Carthon on that. But again, it's Carthon and Vrabel and whatever their collaboration is. Collaboration is a hard word when it's going poorly. People don't like that. People don't accept that. But that's just what they're gonna put out there. One thing you could look at that's positive is they drafted Will Levis, and I think that looks pretty good still. But as Charles said on our show, ownership inspired, whatever exactly that means. Someone in the building told him that. He didn't make that up.
Yeah,
he has at least one very good source in this building who told him that. So what does that mean exactly? I don't know, but that's also like maybe they don't get as much credit as you might think they would because, they weren't initially all in on it. I mean, that's another thing to consider. There's just so much we don't know about all the conversations, obviously, and those things become much more interesting when things go poorly.
Let's keep the conversation going on Mike Vrabel and the coordinators. There's one thing offensively that's kind of hard to believe that we'll get into coming up next as it relates to the coordinators as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click and win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Joe, discussing Vrabel and the coordinators. And you bring up Tim Kelly and the job that he's doing offensively, and I agree with you. Like, the ingredients are bad, and the offensive line is bad. So that's severely limiting into what he can do out there. It is interesting to me, though. Like, as bad as the Titans' offense was last year, they averaged 17.5 points per game. Right now, they're at 16.8 this year. They're getting worse. It's from a points per game perspective, it has gone the other way. And, another 14 on the board yesterday obviously did not help that. But 16.8
with some late touchdowns to make it better.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought the goose egg was in play for a while yesterday. But 16.8 points per game, that's tied with Vegas. Only Pittsburgh, Carolina, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Giants are worse in the NFL, which is kind of amazing that there are that many teams that are worse than 16.8 points per game.
Wait, what's Carolina? What's Carolina's number and where do they rank?
Carolina is 16.3, and they are 28th in the league. No, excuse me, 29th.
What a doozy we've got coming up Sunday. What I think we should start talking about that matchup, don't you?
I do, yeah.
I mean, we have a
break down
short
every facet
week.
of it.
This is kind of Wednesday. I think that we need to spend most of the show breaking down these two outstanding defensive teams as they
first one to 11
defensive battle. It goes to 11. Yeah, Spinal Tap. No, look. Hey, results are results, and again, I think the biggest criticism to me of Kelly, like, there's a lot that I just don't think is. I just don't know how you overcome it. Okay.
Yeah.
When you can't block anyone, you are screwed. You can draw up the prettiest plays in the history of mankind. You are screwed. But the red zone in particular, again, Downing was really good. They were 9th and 6th in the NFL in the 2 years under Downing in the red zone. And they're following up on when they were they were higher than that under Arthur Smith, but they also had everything you need back then. But to go to where they are now in the red zone, and they don't get there too often. When they do not finish unless they're thrown to their defensive tackle. That's I think the biggest concern. The situational solutions that he hasn't found. Now, again, with anything that has gone wrong with the offense, I think you have to keep the personnel in mind. But that's one thing that you look at and say, man, why did it go south? I mean, there were other. Last year's team had personnel issues too. They still got it done in the red zone. Why has he not been able to figure that out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, with the way the offense is playing right now and the defense, who, some weeks looks okay and other weeks looks like they just don't have an answer for anything. I was looking at their schedule last night, Joe. So they've got 7 games left. They got Carolina coming up on Sunday, then another date with the Colts the week after that, and then it's the Dolphins, the Texans, the Seahawks, the Texans again, and the Jags to close out the season. Obviously, it rarely plays out on paper the way you think it will, but I'm looking at maybe 1, maybe 2 more wins for the Titans on the year. That's what I'm looking at right now. Like, I think they should beat Carolina. They might get one against the Texans. They might beat the Colts. Like, maybe. They're going to get killed by Miami. Like, everybody, I think we can see that coming. But I'm looking at like 1 or 2 more wins for the Titans, maybe, the rest of the year, based on the way that they played to this point. That's all I can come up with.
Yeah, I think that's I could see 3. If they get they are going to be they're going to want to beat the Colts because there's at least that there's that bad blood or whatever. But yeah, that's probably about right. If they do better than that, then. Well, Ron and his fellow VIPs are going to be upset, which I get because it really doesn't help you. I mean, these guys are. And Vrabel got asked the question yesterday in Jacksonville about just the sort of transition to what they are now, and he kind of acknowledged it, like, well, we have to deal with it. I mean, like we said last week. I mean, you still had a path to being relevant in December by winning yesterday, and then losing yesterday, whatever it's a close loss or a blowout, whatever it is, like you really don't.
Right.
And then when you and when you add on the fact that it was such an embarrassing blowout, yeah, I mean they're toast. So how do you handle that in that building on a weekly basis? Robby, I do want to read Adam in Portland here.
Okay, he's on the phone line waiting too. So read his text first, then we'll get to him.
Oh well, okay. Well, let's go ahead. Let him. Let's just get him on the line. Let's see if he's going to just read his text.
Okay, let's go to
a good text.
Our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
No, I'm not going to read my text. Dude, I have 1,000 thoughts. Just give me an hour. If you give me an hour, like this is it. All right, Joe. Number one, Joe. Imagine your Lions. Like something happens with Dan Campbell. He has to take sabbatical. I don't care. Would you trust Mike Vrabel to take the team for the rest of the year and keep it going, dude? Because I wouldn't. Like, I like the Lions. I don't want to see them struggle. The same thing with you, Robby. I think your team's trending in the right direction. Nobody expected Jordan Love to pick it up after Aaron Rodgers wipes the whole team out and goes to New York. He's picked it up pretty good. Would you trust Vrabel to get him back on track?
Over Matt LaFleur, yes.
Like that. What's that?
Over Matt LaFleur,
my answer is
yes,
also yes. My answer is also
Matt
yes.
LaFleur is a terrible coach, but so yes, I would. But to your point.
Well, that's what people do now, man. They hire the people who don't really know what they're doing, just as long as they're handsome and, you know, you can put them on TV and not be embarrassed by it. But, like, no, man, yeah, Vrabel, well, LaFleur does suck. But I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like Vrabel adds anything to us right now, man. And the reason that he's, like, yelling at Paul most of the time and different yesterday, I used to have a manager. I worked in a restaurant business. I used to have a manager that was exactly like that. He'd be rude to us. He'd be rude to customers. And then when the DM, who we didn't even know his name, would come in the building, he'd get really nice to everybody. Like, he would help out. I'm like, where's this guy been, you know? And so that's what Vrabel's doing right now. So he probably does fear for his job, and nobody wants to get fired. I don't even want to see him, like, struggle in life, but I don't want him to be my coach, too. I think I could be both ways. You don't want to crap on the man as a person, but, like, I don't want to coach my team anymore, man. Like, I pay so much money. He makes millions to do this. I pay so much money to watch these dudes, and they are off. That's the softest team I've ever seen before. And I don't want to get too worked up. It's a new week. I want to keep my head right, but, like, dude, like, this is the softest team I've ever seen. His linebackers suck. His tight ends suck. That game plan was so overly predictable, and just an uninspired football team, except Jeffrey Simmons and Will Levis. They look good, but everybody else sucked.
Thanks for the call, Adam. Appreciate it. I felt like that was a nice therapy session for Adam there. Speaking on behalf of a lot of Titans fans.
First of all, it was fine. It was a good call and a good time. And again, his point being, you know, people talk about these guys who make millions. We spend thousands to watch them. Be sad for us, bro. That was a part of his text I liked. But to answer your question, Adam, first of all, they're not my Lions. By golly,
they're getting there though.
You guys are going to stop calling them and I'm honestly answering you. If they were, and I got a choice between here's this team, do you want Dan Campbell coach them or do you want Mike Vrabel coach them? I am taking Mike Vrabel. Sorry to Dan Campbell. I like him. He's a nice guy. I'm taking Mike Vrabel. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy. I don't know if that's going to go over very well on the text line. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Well, I'm sorry.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. We'll get into Tennessee and Georgia in the next hour as well. All that coming up. Corey Curtis at 8 o'clock. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, which as always are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll have Corey Curtis from News 2 coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans' loss yesterday to Jacksonville. The Titans, not the only team that got blown out this weekend around here. Tennessee got stomped by Georgia. We'll get into that coming up here in just a few minutes on the program as well. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Herb. Herb, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, good morning. I got a question. Can you name me an AFC team with a young quarterback, a lousy offensive line, mediocre receivers, and an undisciplined, unprofessional secondary? Not name the Titans.
The New England Patriots.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the Jets.
That too.
Their result was very similar.
Yep, thanks for the call, Herb. Appreciate it. I mean, that's what when you start to list off the worst teams in the league, Joe. Patriots are on the list. The Titans are on the list. I don't know if the Jets are one of the worst teams in the league, but I do think that Aaron Rodgers is making his way back for a team that's going to end up having no chance whatsoever to make the playoffs by the time he gets there.
Yeah, it looks that way. Well, the Jets very hyped defense has actually lived up to it, although I know yesterday things kind of broke for them. But like most of this year, they've been a legit top 5 defense.
Yep. The Titans have not been a top 5 defense.
They have not been.
There's no question about that.
They have not been.
That's the thing. I mean, we've talked about the offensive side of this. Do you think Shane Bowen is in trouble at the end of this year if things continue to go this way?
Well, I think that if Mike Vrabel has pure autonomy and is not pressured to make any moves, whether it's specifically this person should be fired or that person should be fired, and no pressure at all, like someone's got to go or whatever, then I think Shane Bowen, I would bet Shane Bowen being back. I mean, but could he be? Yeah, look, if it gets this bad on the field, coordinators are a natural place to look, and that happens. You know, I don't think Vrabel wants to get into the routine of being the coach who sacrifices the coordinators year after year, because at some point when you do enough of that, it's like, okay, when is it your turn? You know, but sure, I mean, I can't rule anything out at this point. If this is going to be this bad, then no one should rule anything out in terms of moves that can be made. And again, how much is Amy going to demand that something happens? Raymond says on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, you guys act like Vrabel's a super coach. As a head coach, he has won 7 more games than he has lost with the Titans. He inherited a playoff team. That is true. He inherited a winner and didn't immediately improve. He didn't get to the playoffs his first year, and we all know what happened. Then they had a fantastic, brief but fantastic era, and now they're very bad. Is it because of his coach? I've seen a whole bunch on Twitter, on the text line, a whole bunch of he has lost this team, right? Is that true? Has he lost this team, or have they found each other in complete misery and they're just, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes I think we're searching
I don't
for
know.
too many answers that when the obvious answer is just based on what we've seen, then that's your opinion. That's fine. Like you can have that, and I don't think it's an absurd take for you to have based on their record. Now, having said that, there's always when things like this happen, there's a conversation about, well, has the coach lost the room? Has such and such, has his voice worn thin? And that does happen from time to time in pro sports. But guys, I think the answer with this team is pretty darn simple. They're not good. Their roster is god-awful. And you can blame whoever you want to blame for that, and Vrabel shoulders some of that blame. So I'm not trying to exonerate him. But I think sometimes we start looking too deep for reasons when the answer is pretty clear right in front of you. And the answer is this team is terrible, and there's not really much you can do with it. I mean, their offense has no chance with that offensive line. Their defense is clearly overrated, and some of the guys that you thought were good players are starting to either age out of being good players or not living up to the contracts that they've signed. But whatever the reason is, like whatever, you know, you want to look around and and pass the blame off on. A lot of those reasons are valid, but to me it comes back to their roster is terrible, and that's why they're 3-7.
Yes. See, but here's the hard part. Fans are upset, and I think Adam, I'm totally with you, Adam. I mean, when it comes down to it, you get into a situation like this, you think about what you invest in a team, as a fan. You paying, especially if you're going to that stadium, you're paying for seat licenses, all that stuff, and you're paying $19 for a beer, whatever.
Sure.
I mean, and so fans are upset, and they invest in motion and all that stuff into it. And so, they want someone accountable. I get that. And the problem with the roster thing is the GM's a year in. Like, you can't refire John Robinson, right? So I think that's part of in terms of outside looking at Vrabel. It's like, well, one guy got fired. What about this guy? Again, I say you got to separate coach and evaluator, because I still believe Mike Vrabel, when his coaching career is done, he's going to look pretty good. He's a good coach. Vrabel, the talent evaluator, I'm concerned about. I think it's very much a valid concern, because most of the off seasons they had once he came on as coach were pretty bad. Now, the second one was amazing, but like, if he has more of a hand, and he does, in personnel decisions, there have been a lot of bad personnel decisions, and it's very convenient to put it all on J-Rob. But that's where the concern is to me. The coaching aspect of it, I personally think the Titans would be wise to hold on to him. But I also, like you said, understand when things are going bad, anything's on the table and anything can be discussed.
Yeah, I'm totally with everything you just said. The lost the room stuff, I think that gets so overblown. First off, I mean, the roster turnover has been so dramatic with this team. It's a different room. Like, people act like it's the same guys that are in there every year, and they got some of the same guys, right? But like, the losing the room part of this, I don't think Vrabel has lost the room. I just don't think they're good. Like, there's a difference between those two things. Just because you're not playing well doesn't mean the coach has lost the room. They're just not good.
Yeah. No, right. I mean, it's like someone here is like, put the backups in for the offensive line, and then maybe they'll get someone who can play hard. I don't think they're not playing hard. I think they're bad. I think they're trying very hard out there, and they are subpar backup level players all over the field with that offensive line. It's not. I don't think there was one instance yesterday, not that I've dissected the film, of effort being the problem. It's, you can't block competent NFL defensive players because you're not good. And again, when that happens, the Lions are an effective. The Lions are an effective, team to keep bringing up. Dan Campbell's fine. I mean, I'd rather go drink 11 beers and skeet shoot with him than Vrabel. But they dominate people up front they've done a great job of building in the trenches, and then everything else works from there. All their skill guys look better as a result, and the Titans are in the opposite situation.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans. We'll also get into Tennessee and Georgia at Neyland Stadium over the weekend. Started off great for the Vols, and then very quickly went downhill from there. We'll get into that. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vanderbilt women's basketball. The Commodores will be at home against Alabama State. Tip-off at 1 o'clock. Pregame begins at 12:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Also, make sure you join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Teddy's Tavern this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for our NFL pregame show. They'll break down the Titans' Week 12 matchup against the Panthers and give you the latest updates before the game. Our NFL pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans. We got Corey Curtis coming up from News 2. We'll get his thoughts to begin the top of next hour as well. Joe, the Titans, not the only team around here. They got thrashed over the weekend. Georgia with a 38-10 beatdown of Tennessee at Neyland Stadium on Saturday night. You were there in person for this game. Dolly Parton was there, Peyton Manning. Three legends in the house at the same time with Rexrode, Dolly Parton, and Peyton Manning. Things started great for the Vols, Joe. First play from scrimmage, Jalen Wright with a house call, 75 yards. Things looked great for Tennessee. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe Tennessee's going to be able to run the ball after all against this Georgia team, and that was pretty much it. That was about all she wrote for Tennessee in that game. Carson Beck played great, 24 of 30, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Georgia totally dominant against Tennessee. Tennessee drops to 7-4. What'd you make of that one on Saturday? Specifically, just how dominant Georgia looked. They look like, once again, Joe, that they are on a path towards a third straight national championship.
Yeah, my main takeaway is more about Georgia than Tennessee, because I sitting there during that game and just looking at what I think is the team that's going to win it all. You know, the most surprising part of that game by far to me, because the Vols in that stadium and the atmosphere was fantastic. I mean, Vols fans, all the credit in the world, because this has been a disappointing season. You just got destroyed by Missouri, and not only was the place full, but really, there was the Georgia section low, like the parents, and then there was some in the kind of the one corner, but I've seen Georgia Red overtake that stadium before. And Tennessee fans mostly kept them out, and they were fantastic, and the place was on fire after the Jalen Wright touchdown. And it's like, you can't ask for a better atmosphere to try to do this. And we know how well that defensive front for Tennessee plays in that atmosphere in huge games. They had no chance. Tim Banks is sending blitzes from every angle he can send them. He tried different things. He also tried to drop 8 a couple times and rush 3, whatever it was. That offensive line is an absolute brick wall. Here we go again in football. If your big uglies can beat the other team's big uglies, boy, everything else becomes easy. And the quarterback is becoming excellent. But he has a clean pocket whenever he wants to throw. So it doesn't matter. He doesn't have Ladd McConkey. He does have a freaking superhero, X-Man, in Brock Bowers. And I was stunned to see the Vols just have no chance at all, because that hasn't happened all year. I mean, they got after Milroe, especially in the first half. They've been able to generate some pressure most weeks, and they were completely silenced in this game. And Georgia's offense is starting to, especially that they're going to get McConkey back.
Yeah,
they're starting to look kind of like Georgia's defenses of the past years. That's the lead unit for Georgia.
Well, Beck was sensational. Dylan Bell did everything in the game. He threw a touchdown pass, had a huge catch along the sideline in the first half there on a 3rd down, which kept the drive alive there. Tennessee got an interception that was called back for holding in the game. That was a point of contention at the time with Tennessee fans. I'm not sure that ends up mattering at the end of the day, but what did you think of that call? And it just kind of felt like after that, pretty much nothing went right for Tennessee.
I didn't love it. I didn't like it, but it's like the Cleveland Titans situation. If the ball goes there, the eyes are there. And so the hand fighting that goes on every play is much more likely to be called. And so the ball goes there, and it's a little bit of a, the hand. I would have preferred that not to be called. I get it, because you see it a lot in football. If the ball goes to a certain place, the hand fighting all of a sudden becomes, it's just like the spotlight's on it, So yeah, I didn't like the call. That pick should have stood. Yeah, I mean, hey, I suppose psychologically, if you can actually build a lead and put some pressure on them, then probably not.
Yeah,
It probably doesn't matter at all. Yeah. Yeah, dominant football team. Just it's incredible what Kirby Smart has done. It really is. To have that kind of talent, that kind of turnover, lose that kind of talent every year to the NFL and just reload and have the same. They're just such a tough together team, not just a loaded team. It's really impressive.
So, Joe, as you can imagine, a lot of upset Tennessee fans after the game on Saturday. They've been outscored 74-17 in their last two games against Missouri and Georgia. So, obviously, I mean, it's two butt kickings in a row that Tennessee fans have had to endure. I would just go ahead and assume that Tennessee is going to be able to take care of business on Saturday against Vanderbilt, and you're probably looking at an 8-4 season after all that. So, if you're a Tennessee fan today, given what we've seen this season, and specifically the last 2 weeks, Missouri and Georgia, how are we feeling? Because I kind of broke this down on Saturday night, Joe. I'm looking around, 8-4. I don't think 8-4 can be considered a bad season for Tennessee. Tennessee football to me has not arrived at the point where 8-4 is bad. Now, 8-4, I think it's fair to say, is disappointing based on what some of the expectations could have been heading into this year, but I don't think it's a bad year. A lot of that depends on what they do from here and how good Nico is and all those things. But you're looking at what they've done this year. They've not beaten a good team. Like they Texas A&M and Kentucky, which depending on whichever way you want to slice it, one of those two are probably their best wins, and neither one of those teams are very good. So you look at the good teams that they played this year. They had Alabama on the ropes at halftime. They let them off the hook and got steamrolled in the second half. They got killed by Georgia and Missouri, and honestly got killed by Florida down there in the swamp too. So with a resume that's really missing a good win this year for Tennessee and an 8-4 season, how should Tennessee fans be feeling today? And yes, I know I'm penciling in a win against Vanderbilt. Sue me.
Yeah, I it's fine. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Yeah, I mean, disappointed is fine. It's funny because there's a lot of Vols fans who will argue against that and say, well, everybody said 9-3, 8-4, but you just laid it out there. It's also how you get there, and just not being competitive in those games, I guess in basically 2.5 games, no, I'm sorry. 3.5 games.
3.5,
not being competitive. That's disappointing. I mean, the snowballing that goes on against this team and this team's inability to stop that, I think, is alarming. So there's that. I think it's also, you have to keep in perspective. And basically, Heupel, I saw you had a tweet, something about calm down about Heupel. It's funny because as I saw that Saturday, my column was just about to go up, which basically said the same thing. Like, I mean, look, he's kind of a victim of his success in year two, right? He's kind of a victim of being ahead of schedule last year.
Yeah.
If you look at the overall 3-year performance, it's good. It's encouraging. The recruiting is going fantastic. And the thing is, the snowballing and all that's on him. He's got to fix that. And I think you also maybe leadership in the locker room needs to be a little better, because that's part of how those things can get stopped. And they just don't stop it when it starts going bad against them. But the thing about this year is it is an outlaw. Both, it's a big step down. Receivers a bigger step down. Not all on Joe Milton, but he hasn't been able to get it done. I get not playing Nico this year. He's playing next year. And the next 2 years are going to define Josh Heupel's tenure. If they look like that team again and they're in there to be in the 12-team playoff, then there you go. I mean, it's what you want. If they can't, then we're going to look back and say, wow, so Hendon Hooker just made Josh Heupel look like a genius for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the conversation, and I get it, it's you just got destroyed by Georgia and you're mad if you're a Tennessee fan. Like I get the discourse after the game. I do think cooler heads, if you're a Vols fan, probably need to prevail at the end of the day and realize that Josh Heupel's done a pretty good job while he's here. Now, having said that, Joe, there are two things that I think Heupel needs to take a long, hard look at this next offseason and try to determine what the best path forward is for Tennessee. And we'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Bavarian Beer House, Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, is a place full of fun, food, music, and most importantly, beer. You can enjoy traditional German bratwurst, schnitzel, giant pretzels, and more in an Oktoberfest-inspired space. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, live from our 102.5 The Game studio, brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Tennessee gets smoked on Saturday, 38-10, the final score against Georgia. The Bulldogs improved to 11-0. Is that 28 in a row for them? 29 in a row? Something like that? Look pretty
28,
good.
I think, right?
Yep.
And 26 in a row in the SEC. Yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd.
Pretty darn good, no question about that. So on the Tennessee front, there are two things that I think Josh Heupel needs to take a long look at this offseason. And first off, to the weirdo Tennessee fans out there that think that he should be on the hot seat, let's take a breath for a second. Just calm down a little bit. I do, though, Joe, if I'm him, you kind of ran through the offensive numbers and how dramatically it's dropped off the table. And he basically opened up to that on Saturday night and talked about how disappointing that is and the fact that they can't score any points and how that's not been the way that things have traditionally gone around there. And it's easy to look around and point to Milton, and it's easy to point to the receivers not playing as well as we thought they would have so far this year. And all that's a factor, and it could be as largely as simple as that. I will say, Joe, like, how much are they missing Golish, and was Halsley the right guy to take over as OC? I don't know. Like, that would be a question that I'm throwing around if I'm Heupel. Taking a long look at your process, obviously he's comfortable with Joey Halsley, and that's why he made the hire to begin with. But the results are what they are. Is that the right approach? Is that the right guy to be your OC? That's something I'd be taking a look at. I don't know that I expect a change there, but when your results are as dramatically different, you start with personnel, and then I think you start to look at that and see if there's something that you can tweak or adjust with that. Number two, I think that Tim Banks largely has done a good job. We've talked about the challenges that come with being a defensive coordinator on this team. The drives for your offense go very quick, either ending up in the end zone in 2 minutes or you're a 3-and-out and you've punted the ball back to the other team in 45 seconds.
So a lot more 3-and-out this year.
A lot more 3-and-out this year. So I fully acknowledge that has to be factored in and that there's a part of this. And I don't think that Tim Banks is a bad defensive coordinator. I do think, though, if you're Heupel, a question you need to ask is, do we feel like there's somebody out there that could be better? Is there somebody out there that you feel like could do a better job as DC? And we've talked about the struggles on the road and how the defense just falls apart on the road. Defense got punked the other day, too, by a very good Georgia team at home. Like, I don't think Tim Banks has done a bad job, but I do think we've reached the point where if you're him, you ask the question of, is there somebody out there that you feel like could do a better job with this defense? And maybe the answer is no. And look, I'll be straight with you. I don't expect that he's going to make any staff changes next year. So this is probably going to be all for naught. But those would be two questions if I'm Josh Heupel that I would be seriously considering heading into this offseason.
So Robby's firing both coordinators. Way to not panic, man. That's great.
I'm just saying to take a look.
Yeah, no, I that's fair, and I think the Golish. I think Golish absolutely was a lost shoot. Golish, South Florida this year. I mean, I know a couple weeks ago they lost 59-50 to Memphis, but I mean they've been pretty competitive right away with him, more than you would think. Anybody might think back to when Alabama decided to show everybody why Jalen Milroe is a starter with the other quarterbacks who couldn't do anything in that game, that they were in a grinder against South Florida. He's a loss. He was a big part of this. I mean, Josh Heupel let him call plays for most of the 2 seasons that Golish was here, which should tell you something, because Josh Heupel is absolutely a play-calling head coach. So I think it's fair to look at Halsley, who's never been an OC, look at this offensive performance and at least say, okay, where did he mess up? I didn't like early in the year how they were just so limiting of Joe Milton.
Agreed.
We've seen some mistakes from Joe Milton that kind of showed, like, I get the mindset, but I think they actually loosen things up a little bit. And think the Kentucky game. Kentucky's dog water, by the way, and they lose to your boy.
They're terrible
this weekend. But still, like, there was a stretch there where the Vols looked like, okay, they're figuring some things out offensively. But overall, it hasn't been good enough. Banks, yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Another thing to keep in mind on things like this is, and remember Ben McKee last week talking about their defensive recruiting really right now is kind of outpacing their offensive recruiting.
Yep.
And that's a thing to consider too. I mean, these guys are signing up, and of course there's NIL and all these other things. They're signing up to play for him. They're signing up to play for Rodney Garner for sure.
Well, that's
right?
why I don't think anything's going to happen.
Yeah. So that's, I don't think anything's been fireable there, but I think an absolute evaluation of the whole thing is necessary. And I do wonder, why did this team struggle so much? Now, we saw last year's team let things snowball at South Carolina. So, it's not like this is the first year we've seen that at all, but it just seemed like this year was a more consistent issue where things start to go bad and it looks a little bit soft. This team looks a little bit soft and not able to stop the bleeding. So why is that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you look at where they're at right now. You mentioned the recruiting. It's going well. And this was a big recruiting weekend. Apparently they had a lot of recruits on campus this week now. I'm sure they were impressed with the atmosphere. The game didn't go very well, so we'll see how that affects the recruiting part of it. The atmosphere looked very good, but, it feels like if you're a Tennessee fan, you're hoping that this is a transitional year, right? I mean, you've lost Hendon Hooker, you lost Jalen Hyatt, you lost some NFL talent. You got Nico taking over next year, which, by the way, a lot of Tennessee fans mad he didn't play on Saturday when the game got out of hand. He's probably going to play against Vanderbilt. I don't think he's going to start, but he'll probably play at some point against Vanderbilt, and then you can play him now in the bowl game, and it doesn't count against his redshirt year, which I know Tennessee fans immediately go to, well, if he's as good as you think he is, who cares about the redshirt year? But it is something to consider if you're Josh.
You never know. You don't know how it's going to work out. He could be good, but not great. This happens with 5 stars.
Exactly. So you're hoping that this is a transitional year, and then next year he steps in, you develop some more of your younger guys, and you're able to compete for a spot in the 12-team playoff next year. It is interesting, though, because you brought up the struggles this year with the offense. And, Ben McKee was on with us last week saying he feels better about kind of the defense moving forward. And I get what he's saying with the talent that they've got coming in and the recruiting that's going on there. One thing that I feel like, Joe, is like you better feel better about the offense moving forward if you're Josh Heupel. Like the offense is going to be what wins you games at Tennessee. And look, they need to be better defensively. There's no question about that. And it's a good thing that they're recruiting well on the defensive side of the ball, because at some point they're going to need their defense to make some stops for them and win games, kind of like they did in the A&M game where you win the game because of your defense. But if the offense isn't significantly better moving forward than what it was this year, then to me that limits what Tennessee's going to be as a program. That's what Josh Heupel is. He's an offensive guy, and he's a guy that has been brought in to score points and has scored points wherever he's been. So beyond just the quarterback part of it, because that's obviously going to be the main change heading into next year, are there going to be receivers that step up and catch the ball and make some big plays? Because of all the things that have happened here this year, Joe, that's probably been the most disappointing to me, is the play of the receivers. It's been very bad.
No, I agree. And I think looking at everything, they've got some guys, they got some guys coming. Of course, well, speaking of Georgia, they beat out Georgia for Mike Matthews, who's, a big-time 5-star receiver coming in. So you never know who may emerge. I do look at them and think that maybe the same idea they had last offseason, which is Hyatt's gone, got to have a guy who just on the deep choice routes just can't be covered. And Dante Thornton starts to look like that guy, and then he gets hurt. And I think maybe they're going to have to get in the portal there. I think they're probably going to have to get in the portal again on offensive line. And it's a little bit concerning to me. Like at this point, pretty soon here, you should start seeing the fruits of recruiting paying off a little bit more there. But I'm with you. Receiver, I know next year that Squirrel White is going to be back, and he's really good. And I know that Dylan Sampson, I think he's going to emerge. I think Jalen Red's going to be in the NFL, and I think that Dylan Sampson is going to emerge and be a big-time playmaker. But they need a lot more than that. They need much better quarterback play. And, yeah, they need to get back to dominate with their offense. They're not going to, I don't think, ever be the team with a formula of dominating defensively.
No.
You know, like there's some limitations that are always going to be there, but the limitations need to be because the offense is scoring touchdowns too fast, and that ended this year.
615-737-1025 is our number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it is time for the Rob Rant. You can check it out every morning at 7:45, either the Rob Rant or the Rex Rant. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
We roll to the right. Bell to throw a touchdown pass. Yeah! Dylan Bell. Took the carry. Went to the right side and chunked it into the end zone. Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint caught the touchdown pass from Dylan Bell. Tennessee defensive line moving around. They bring 4. Beck rolls right, throws Beck with a scoop catch at the 2. Did he get in? Yeah, touchdown. Brock Bowers.
Well, every day I look in the mirror, I don't think I'm getting any younger.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45, either the Rob Rant or the Rex Rant. Joe, there are certain things in life, specifically in football, that I feel like sometimes we take for granted. You know, around here it's been kind of a gambit of issues that we've taken for granted. You know, the Titans went through a stretch here where they couldn't get a field goal kicker to kick one through the uprights, and now you see Nick Folk, and you're like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to have a good field goal kicker. You know, quarterback play around here before. I mean, we've gone through it with, you know, Vince Young and Jake Locker and Zach Mettenberger chucking balls around here, and you know, Will Levis has come in. There's high expectations for him. We've gone through the Marcus Mariota experience, and then there's Ryan Tannehill that came in and played pretty at a high level of quarterback. And like, okay, this is what it's like to have a quarterback that can actually do some things at the NFL level. And you're hoping that Will Levis can build on that and be even better. And I'm starting to realize, Joe, that maybe we took Ben Jones a little bit for granted too, for his ability to snap a freaking football, because apparently that is a very difficult task for Aaron Brewer to accomplish. And look, I'm not trying to sit here and pile on the Titans' offensive line, because that's all we've talked about all year is how bad they are, but we should be able to snap the football. And yet again yesterday, Aaron Brewer snaps one high and wide to Will Levis. They fumble the ball. It was a promising drive up until that point, and then they turn the ball over. And it feels like, Joe, there's like 2 or 3 snaps every game that are just totally offline. And it's not bit them in every game, although the Malik Willis play a few weeks ago when he got in there, not a good snap then either. Like, Aaron Brewer is struggling to snap the football, and we got to get that part of it figured out. Like, if you can't snap the football in the NFL, you can't play center. Beyond is he big enough? What about, is he a 175-pound center like people think he is running around out there? Is he too small? All those things are a different conversation. But we got to get to a place, Joe, where we can execute a snap in the NFL, and 2 or 3 times a game when the snap's high and wide cannot be happening at the NFL level. I saw this happen again yesterday where he snaps it too high and Levis fumbled it and they turned the ball over. I'm like, what are we doing? This is the National Football League, and we can't execute a snap to the quarterback. It's ridiculous.
It's weird, too, because I'm trying to remember, like, was this a thing, like, from the start of the season? It feels like it's a more all of a sudden recently.
He can't, and like I said, it's not burn them because either Tannehill has caught it or Levis has caught it or whoever. Like I think they fumbled a couple of them, but I mean it's high and wide way too often. Like you got to find a way to calm down and get the snap to your quarterback.
No doubt. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, they were they're on the broadcast yesterday. They're talking about how they worked on it, and it's like okay, well. Work on it more. I know Vrabel did we'll do 100 instead of 50, in practice to try to get it right. It's also like it's part of if you're a bad team, like you're going to find a way to screw it up one way or the other because this team has a multitude of ways. And that was a good drive. And, it's kind of like Tennessee against Georgia. Maybe you get a little momentum, you get something rolling in the right direction, and who knows, psychologically, what does that do for you? Jags have been bad at home. They just got blown out, whatever. And it's like, here you go. Here's the ball. And it just completely kills everything. But it does seem to me, you may be right. I know he's had a few this year, but it seems like recently it's become a bigger issue. And I know everybody was all over Malik Willis on the one they lost to the Falcons, but still, it was a bad snap.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he tried to pick it up was the problem instead of just falling on it. So, and that's a fair criticism, but it just seems like it's getting worse. Why would that be?
I don't know. Like, we had a texter that says you'd snap it horribly too if you were 80 pounds lighter than the guy you had to block. It was from Tyler. I mean, maybe it is that. Maybe he's like, oh my gosh, I have to block so quick that he's just ready to get the ball out of there and get ready to take the hit. I don't know. But whatever it is, you got to get that part of it figured out. Like, it's one thing to not be able to block and to be a bad offensive line, which we know the Titans are, and that's not going to change. This is the National Football League. Execute the snap to the quarterback, and then let your problems be elsewhere other than not being able to snap the football. It's atrocious. Like, I felt like I was watching high school football yesterday when they did that.
Yeah, it's just up and down, that roster. And, speaking of him, we've talked about the offensive line. You're not going to do a wholesale new offensive line other than Skoronski next year.
Right.
But, Brewer, we joke about his weight. I mean, he has declared that he's in the 290s. Whatever. He's undersized. Center is the only place that he can realistically be a consistent starter in this league. It hasn't worked out. I mean, tackle is still the priority by far, but I could see an attempt at center along with tackle. It's a lot. I mean, it is a lot to try to address, but you might be okay at the guard spots and then try to do 3.
Well, I do wonder, obviously the tackles are a given, or at least the left tackle spot is. It's a given. Like, it's going to be addressed by the Titans in some form or fashion, and we'll see whether or not they address it effectively. I am curious about right tackle and how they feel about Petit Frere there and how willing they are to use either a high pick or spend some money to go get a right tackle. But I do want, if you're Vrabel and Carthon and the offensive staff right now, do you feel like heading into next year that a change at center is needed? And how willing are you to make that a priority? It's not going to be the top priority. Are you willing to make it a priority heading into this offseason? Because to your point, Joe, the priority list is already pretty long for the Titans. I don't know where center falls in on that, but are you comfortable with Aaron Brewer being your center again next year as we sit here today if you're the Tennessee Titans? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, look, they're not going to address everything. They can't. They have $100 million cap space and all that, but they're not going to address everything. To me, you have to, and it's not sexy. Now, if you can get someone said the Brock Bowers, yeah. You can get a Marvin Harrison, yes. You need to address that, but your most precious commodity is number 8, the new number 8, Will Levis. So, and also center is a really important position. You have a long-term center to kind of lead an offensive line.
Yeah.
But again, the problem is like, so okay, you're going to draft one high, and you're going to, and it's like, man, like, how do you address that? You have to go left tackle first. But I think if there's an opportunity, even like in the middle rounds, there's someone you feel good about to try to have a long-term solution there, it might be worthwhile. Maybe something in free agency, but I think it's important as quickly as possible to fix the offensive line and give the kid a chance back there. And the center calling out protection, just kind of leading the way and everything. Well, I know the QB calls out the protections more in this offense, but it's a very important position. So I think it's got to be not the top of the priority list, but it's up there a little bit.
As we sit here today, how many new starters in the offensive line will there be next year? You going 4 or 5, 3 or 5? What do we think?
Yeah, I'd guess 3. Like you said, a big question there is, and I think the guards are, I think they're fine there. I think, left tackle, of course, center, pretty good chance, and then right tackle is the really interesting thing. What do they actually think about Petit Frere? With a full off season coming back. I mean, you can't know that he's going to be good enough, right? But how much? I mean, that may be a spot where they you got to figure it out among a group of guys and hope it's okay. I don't know. I mean, you just can't. You're not going to be able to do everything. But I would say, so that would be 2. If I'm right, that would be only 2. Then it may be that, but I'll still guess 3.
I'll go 3 as well. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by our friend Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans and their loss to Jacksonville yesterday, get his thoughts on how the Titans move forward from here. All that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, good morning. How are you?
In the words of the great Loki in Thor Ragnarok, your savior is here.
Great movie, by the way.
Welcome.
I really enjoyed that. One of the last Marvel movies that was actually good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I just threw them right under the bus.
That's a tough one.
It was.
It's my favorite.
It's pretty good.
It's my favorite.
I enjoy it.
It's my favorite.
So, Corey, we were having this conversation earlier. How many teams in the NFL right now at this moment are playing worse football than the Titans in your mind? I can come up with about 2 or 3.
Well, I would have said the Giants, and then they won yesterday. You know, if you want a team that's underachieving, you know, on a massive level, you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah. The Chargers were charging at their very finest.
He's going to get fired today, yesterday.
I think. I mean, with that roster, come on. How can you not win games with that roster? That he does not have the excuses that other coaches have. They have got players. That is unbelievable. Without going through the whole league, the Patriots are god awful. But I mean, if you're asking me who would I pick the Titans to beat right now, no one.
Not even the Carolina Panthers.
You know what? I will expect them to win at home because they have played better at home. But if the game were in Charlotte, I would pick the Panthers.
Isn't that just kind of a sad state of affairs of where things are right now? And then yesterday, Corey, I mean, look, it's 27-0 at one point. Titans scored 2 garbage time touchdowns. And as bad as this offense was last year, and it was bad, they averaged 17.5 points a game. They're at 16.8 right now, Corey. They're getting worse offensively, and it's easy to trace it directly to the offensive line, and certainly that's the biggest issue.
Yes,
but
it is.
It's amazing to me that the offense has gotten worse from last year to this year.
Well, especially when you consider that they've got DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
And they didn't last year. And so, you know, you've got DeAndre Hopkins. But last year, you know, there were still times they could run the football. They can't even run the football consistently now, and that's, you know, look, that's a hallmark in the NFL, and that's been the hallmark of this team. It is the core of where this team has started, is running the football and stopping the run. And they can't hang their hat really on anything right now. And so yesterday, I was thinking this, and I saw other people saying it, and, you know, it felt like the cratering of the season. You know, this is the bottom. Now, if they lose to the Panthers, then we could say this is the bottom. But, you know, it kind of felt like, okay, season's over, all right, this is where this team is at, and you kind of begin to rebuild from here. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know about you guys. I saw exactly what I expected to see yesterday. There wasn't anything about yesterday that surprised me.
Yeah, it's right in line. I thought maybe they could be mildly competitive, but that was not the case. So we're along with, like you said, I think most people would agree. We can stop talking about this is a big game. This look at the stand.
Yeah,
like
there's
it
no
doesn't matter.
Game.
That's all over. Right.
Yes.
So now you move to draft and all that stuff. And my goodness, I just can't wait to talk about the NFL draft for several months in a row. But also, of course, Corey, people talking about, you know, Mike Vrabel, Paul Kaharski asked him yesterday about job status. Fans are talking about job status, coordinators, Vrabel, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, where are you on just specifically the coaching staff and the possibility that significant changes could be ahead?
Well, I mean, I you know, look, Paul, you know, people can say whatever they want, but that question needed to be asked. It totally needed to be asked, and I commend him for asking it. You get to that point. I was there when the Titans lost 59-0, and I asked Jeff Fisher about job status that day. I also asked for a statement from the owner that day. But, you know, you get to a point, and we're at that point. They're 3-14 over the last 17. So it's fair to question, all right? We can all still think Mike Vrabel is ultimately a good football coach, a good head coach, and question. And that's, you know, where we're at. I think it's fair to question, if they need to make major changes. I was one who downplayed the Jim Schwartz departure because I thought the personnel was good enough to keep performing at a high level up front on defense. It has not continued to perform at that level. And so now I'm beginning to wonder, how much of an impact did Jim Schwartz have? Because I see that Cleveland defense and I see the Titans defense. And, look, there have been a lot of games where the defense hasn't been great, but it's given them a chance to win. I mean, they were only giving up like 20 points a game coming in. So it hasn't been awful, but we expected this unit to be dominant. And quite frankly, when you look at the money they're spending on the front and the capital they've used on that front, that group needs to be dominant. And they're not. And so I think it's fair to question that. And then, again, I think PK pointed this out. I was thinking it as well, but, just thinking about other people who were talking about it, it's fair to question why no one is getting better. We have seen Titan offensive lines struggle and then get better. Go back to 2019 when Lawan was suspended for the first 4 games, and they were god-awful. I mean, they got Mariota killed. They were absolutely terrible. And they got it together and became a very, very strong unit. We saw for years, where the Mike Munchak years when he was the head coach and he had Bruce Matthews as his offensive line coach, they would struggle out of the gate. Munch would get involved with the offensive line, and it would get fixed, and they would perform. And so we've seen offensive lines get better. So I think I said this last night. There is one thing to lack talent, which we all agree they probably do. But there's another not to improve. And, injuries or not, we're not seeing improvement. And that, I believe, is fair to question.
So, Corey, I saw you tweet this yesterday. Should they be making a call after this year to Mike Munchak and see if he'll come coach the offensive line?
Well, if I was Mike Vrabel, I shouldn't say Mike Vrabel. If I was any head coach in the NFL and I was taking over a team, that would be my first call every time, would be to ask Mike Munchak to run my offensive line. Finest offensive line coach that I've worked with, and that would always be the first call I would make. And look, if I were this team, I would get the blank sheet of paper out and I would say, what would it take for you to come back and run this offensive line? We'll give you this much money. We'll call you the assistant head coach. We'll even give you a big say in the room on offensive linemen in the draft. But that's me. That's not like anything I know. That's just what I would do, because to me, it's not time to take a shot on somebody that we might believe in. You need somebody who can come in and fix this, and that guy fixes offensive lines. I don't know if he wants to coach anymore. The last time I talked to him, he was very happy being a grandfather, but he's been away for a few years, and maybe the thought of coming back here and kind of resurrecting himself here, would be appealing to him. I don't know. It's a call worth making. I texted him. He never answers text.
Well, obviously, you know him well. He has a great track record, and I have no idea if he'd be interested. But that spot in particular, Corey, is where I do look like probably the most curious thing about the offseason is you fire the offensive line coach, and then you promote his assistant to take over. It's just such a bizarre. Like, what are you saying with that move?
Well, from what
I know
heard,
that
it was
Vrabel talked about the greatest interview ever, but
yeah,
what's that?
I think it was a clash of personalities. There was a thought of too much negativity, and they really like you said, liked the person, and they thought that becoming connected on a personal level would help these guys improve. They're not improving, and so you got to ask why. Are they that bad where it's impossible for them to improve? Because look, we've seen Lions struggle, and we just see collapses of the pocket. Just flat out misses. Guys just flat out miss, and obviously you can't have that. And look, the coach Hodling, might be great one day. I don't know, and maybe it's not his fault. But all I can do is look at the product. And every week the product looks the same. And that's a problem. When the product is bad and it looks the same every week, that's a problem.
Corey, last thing for you here. Who you got in the game of the year tonight, Eagles and Chiefs, on Monday Night Football?
Oh, I thought we were talking about the NHL. No.
Who you got in that one, too?
No, I don't. It's the Ryan Johansson revenge game, so of course he's going to come in and get a hat trick and say, this is the way I played every night.
That's right.
I have to go with the Eagles. I have said it all year, and I will continue to say it. The Chiefs' defense is fantastic. Andy Reid is one of my absolute favorite head coaches of all time, and if I could have anybody to coach my team right now, it would be him. Patrick Mahomes is amazing. He doesn't have the weapons that he used to. He's got Travis Kelce, and that's about it. And if I were a defense, I would smother Travis Kelce with 900 people and make the rest of those randos beat me. And I think that's what the Eagles will do. The Eagles have weapons all over the field, and I expect the Eagles to win.
Corey, great stuff. Appreciate it as always. You taking time to be with us. And how about those Chicago Bears yesterday? Nice collapse by them.
It was absolutely unbelievable. You know what? It's amazing because, we're still having the Justin Fields conversations. And, you can like Justin Fields and still acknowledge that Caleb Williams is a generational quarterback, and you have to take him. There is no question about it. And by the way, speaking of that, there are about 3 million fans in Chicago right now who are huge Titan fans.
Yes. No question about that. Corey, appreciate you as always. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Happy Thanksgiving, and the Packers still stink.
Thank you very much. Big game from Jordan Love yesterday.
And they play on Thanksgiving.
They do. A nice matchup between my Green Bay Packers and Joe Rexrode's beloved Detroit Lions, who he's growing fonder of each week.
Mm-hmm. No, I hate them even more.
We'll get into the Titans and Jags, react to what Corey had to say. There are interesting thoughts on the Munchak part of that. We'll get into that coming up next as well. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. So, Corey, I saw you tweet this yesterday. Should they be making a call after this year to Mike Munchak and see if he'll come coach the offensive line?
Well, if I was Mike Vrabel, I shouldn't say Mike Vrabel. If I was any head coach in the NFL and I was taking over a team, that would be my first call every time, would be to ask Mike Munchak to run my offensive line. Finest offensive line coach that I've worked with, and that would always be the first call I would make. And look, if I were this team, I would get the blank sheet of paper out and I would say, what would it take for you to come back and run this offensive line? We'll give you this much money. We'll call you the assistant head coach. We'll even give you a big say in the room on offensive linemen in the draft. But that's me. That's not like anything I know. That's just what I would do. Because to me, it's not time to take a shot on somebody that we might believe in. You need somebody who can come in and fix this. And that guy fixes offensive lines. I don't know if he wants to coach anymore. The last time I talked to him, he was very happy being a grandfather. But he's been away for a few years. And maybe the thought of coming back here and kind of resurrecting himself here, would be appealing to him. I don't know. It's a call worth making. I texted him. He never answers text.
That was Corey Curtis on with us in the last segment. Appreciate him taking time to be with us. What'd you make of his Mike Munchak idea? The Titans ought to give him a call to come coach the offensive line, Joe Rexrode.
Well, he's trying to hire him. He's like texting him, like give him a contract offer. No, look, hey, I don't hate. I think that everything he said there makes sense. I think it's often hard to get someone who's been out, because I think Munchak's last year was 20 his last year or 21 his last year.
I am looking that up as we speak, but either way, he's been out for a couple years now.
I think it's hard to usually to convince someone in that situation to come back to this grind. But then, sometimes people miss it. Like Dean Pease keeps leaving, coming back. I mean, there is definitely a thing when it's your life and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, how about what's your tea time tomorrow? Grandkids have a baseball game Tuesday night. It gets a little bit, it's a huge life change, and some people need the adrenaline of doing it. So, hey, worth a shot. And, someone on Twitter said, basing or projecting performance based on an interview is like the worst way to do it. Or, I mean, look, obviously you're talking about someone who's been in the organization also. And I think what Corey said about Keith Carter is valid and true, that you go back to early days of Keith Carter, Taylor Lewan openly did not like him. They ended up figuring it out, but he was a very tough, in your face, kind of more of an old school coach approach. That was very easy to see on the practice field. And now he's with the Jets. I mean, I don't know. Hasn't gone well. By the way, people are begging for Todd Downing to call plays up there too, by the way. So there you go. But
I think it was like Chris Canty last night tweeted like, it's time to let Todd Downing be in charge of calling plays. It's like, really? Is it? Okay. All right. See how that goes for you.
But I think that is O-line coach is, to me, just strange to do it that way. It's like what the Islanders did with Trotz, right? I mean, it's like, so why must you move on from this person but you want the apprentice? Sometimes it is personality. It's like the concepts, like the teaching, don't like the approach with the players. But Corey's right. We haven't seen improvement. Now, the 2019 improvement had to do with Lewan getting back, and mostly like Nate Davis, right? He wasn't ready early. He was a very good rookie. Yeah. He figured it out. They don't have a guy like that. I mean, like they have Skronsky, and he's been pretty good this year. But the right guard was a huge issue for that team. It was just, take a shot at Mariota from right guard last year, which, by the way, there's a little bit of an argument about, interior or exterior protection. They're both important. And you had a really talented rookie who got better as the year went on. And also Roger Saffold, talented guy, didn't work out as well early. The bottom line is they had a supremely talented group then, and they do not now. They have very little talent right now.
The question comes down to me, on the offensive side of things, you just mentioned it. They fired their offensive coordinator last year, and they fired their offensive line coach last year. So how willing are they going to be to make changes to the offensive staff again, right? I mean, is Tim Kelly's job actually in danger? Because to me, you could make a lot of cases why it shouldn't be, Joe. Now, having said that, they're at 16.8 points per game, and if it continues to be as bad as it's been, then if you're a Titans fan out there, you say, well, get a new offensive coordinator because he's not getting the job done. There could be a lot of reasons for that, as we've discussed. But I do wonder, like, even if it's as bad as it's been, given the fact that they just did this and they just fired their OC and their offensive line coach, are they actually going to be willing to do that again just one off season later? I don't know. If it's that bad, then you got to consider it. But I don't know that I'm convinced that they will do that.
I say with a high level of confidence, if Mike Vrabel fires Tim Kelly after this year, Mike Vrabel was told you have to fire Tim Kelly this year.
Yeah,
I say that with high confidence. I don't think that'll happen. Now, O-line, that to me is different because it's kind of a continuation. This is a new system. This is a new guy they wanted to hire before when they couldn't, and they went with Downing internally. So the limitations personnel wise and the fact that they're just switching to this offense this year, I think that makes it very unlikely. It is worth pointing out, by the way, the offensive line, there are 7 different combinations that have started basically because of injuries, right? So they've had that. But the problem for me is, yes, continuity is a huge thing for sure with an offensive line. And they have struggled to find that through no one's fault in some cases because of injuries. But all the combinations I've looked at have been subpar.
You heard it here first. Joe Rexrode says if the Titans just had continuity on the offensive line this year, they'd be fine. It'd all be good.
It's all about injuries. The story is injuries.
That's right.
Not that people who can't block other people.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the Titans coming up next. They lose yesterday to the Jags, 34-14. They dropped to 3-7 on the regular season, and they are 3-14 in their last 17 games. We'll get into the Jags game, the conversation around Mike Vrabel and his job status, all of that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, live from our 102.5 The Game studio, brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. We'll have Preds Pick to Click coming up at 8:45, so looking forward to that. Preds in action tonight, taking on the Colorado Avalanche. Right now, taking your thoughts on the Titans. They lose 34-14 yesterday to Jacksonville. Hey, Joe, you want to hear a depressing stat if you're a Titans fan? I mean, I guess it depends on the way you view it. Either very happy for Jeffrey Simmons or very upset about what I'm about to say. Yesterday with Jeffrey Simmons'
I know what you're going to say.
Touchdown reception, he has now tied Treylon Burks for his career touchdown marks with one touchdown reception. What do you think of that one?
That's quite a stat right there. He's also a good blocker too. Has he had as many great blocks as Burks?
Is Jeffrey Simmons their best offensive player? That's what we're asking today on the program.
Their most versatile offensive weapon, Jeff Simmons. That catch was not a gimme. I mean, it required some hands.
Levis, not a whole lot of zip on that one. He's like, I'm going to loft this one up there for the defensive tackle and hope that he can catch it. And he did.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah, next time, just go ahead and bring the fastball. He's fine.
Just fire that sucker in there. Big Jeff can handle it. We'll see. 34-14, the final score yesterday. At one point, it was 27-0, and I thought a goose egg might be in store for the Titans. It was not. They end up scoring a couple garbage time touchdowns, but too little, too late. They fall to 3-7, 0-6 on the road. They're 3-14 in their last 17, dating back to last year. Joe, more of the same game-wise. Like, I'm running out of things to say about the Titans in the game. Like, they can't block anybody. They can't score. Their defense has been underwhelming. That's basically how you describe their season to this point. Mike Vrabel addressed his job status after the game. When Paul Koharski was asked about it, we've talked about that all day long to this point. At 3-7, what do you make of where the Titans are right now? What did you make of the game yesterday against Jacksonville? And where do you see this thing going from here? Because as I said earlier, Joe, on paper right now, I'm identifying one, maybe two more wins for the Titans the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's Titans fans, long-term Titans fans. It's 2015 all over again because you have an awful team. You are thinking about the next draft. You're talking about changes, and I know that Wizard Hunt got fired during that season, but you have your quarterback. Little different, but not much different. A little different in that there's no question as a number 2 pick, he's going to get the next several years to show it. I mean, I think Levis will too, but it's a little different when you have the number 2 pick and the number 33 pick. But you have just a lot of awfulness around your hope at a quarterback with number 8 on his jersey. And the Titans, I don't believe, are going to be able to pull off being at the very top of the draft like that 2015 team did.
They're getting closer, though.
But they are moving up the list. Where are they now? They're top
number
5.
6.
They're not quite top 5. They're 6. Okay,
yeah.
They're 6. Yeah, and so so they have 7 losses, and there's a few teams with New England has 8. So Carolina and Arizona both have 9.
Yeah.
You can make the case for the Titans. Man, if you dropped this week, you, quote unquote, win the tiebreaker with the Panthers. Now, that's the Panthers/Bears, actually, right? Yeah. So it's just, it's going to be an absolute slog to the finish, and it's a good thing for people who have season tickets, for people who can't help themselves but to watch this team on Sunday, that there is number 8 under center, and that you can hope that you see good things there in development there. But you also need to hold your breath because he's getting battered. Yesterday wasn't as bad because they only had the ball for 9 minutes of the game. So they ran 30 fewer plays than the Jags. He had good numbers. He also comes up limping after that scramble, and they retaped the foot. And so we're already talking about a guy who's dealing with a little something here. He'll probably be on the injury report again this weekend. It's basically Levis and lose. Double L's for the Titans.
I will say, the numbers are good for Levis. He's 13-17, 158 with 2 touchdowns yesterday. He had the garbage time touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins, and then that deep shot to Chris Moore too. Other than that, they were at about 75 yards passing on the day. It wasn't going very well. Also, like, I do think one thing that is fair to say about Levis to this point is he has probably deserved to throw more interceptions than he actually has. And he had one again yesterday where he's rolling around and he throws it across his body right back to the middle of the field, and the defender just dropped it. But probably deserves to have a few more picks than he does to this point.
He made a couple decisions yesterday that were flat out bad rookie QB decisions that he's very lucky didn't cost him. I mean, the numbers for him are very deceiving. Now, again, he didn't have much of a chance. He doesn't have much of a chance with his offense. And when he actually can stand up, step into a throw, and has someone downfield, he's throwing a beautiful ball.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, he made a couple decisions yesterday that you're just like when they go through film, it's like erase that from your game. At all costs, erase that from your game. That's going to do nothing but help the team lose. So, overall, it's I think he's handled it well. I mean, it's still when they can manage to, 13 to 17, like you said, you got the two big plays. You take those away, and you're talking about 94 of his 158 yards,
right?
Okay, that are off the board. I did think he had a few other short intermediate throws that were good, that were like he just had enough time and he got it to a good spot, for Hopkins on one play or this, I mean, the talent is there. The toughness is there. I think we've definitely seen that so far. How much can the rest of the year help him? And like I said earlier in the show, it's like Titans fans want the team to lose now. I mean, I'm sure I know plenty of Titans fans would be like, no, I still want the team to win. I can't help root for them to win. But, big picture, it's better for this team to lose now. But also, you probably wouldn't mind seeing the young guy lead a game-winning drive or two before the end of the year, right? I mean, that's a huge part of quarterbacking this league is being able to command the 2-minute and getting it done.
Well, they need him to make enough plays where you feel good about him heading into next year, right? Like they need Levis to show some progress here. And look, I don't know how much of a chance he's going to have to actually do that based on what's around him right now. But yeah, like right now, if you're the Titans, if you're a Titans fan, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about the draft, you're thinking about positioning, all those things. But in the back of your mind, aren't you wanting to see Levis take some steps forward to close out this season and to feel good about him heading into the offseason and try to build the roster around him? And I'm not saying you can't do that and you can't feel good about him if things don't improve much for the rest of this year, because like I said, I just don't know how much of a chance he actually has based on the rest of the team and the quality that's around him right now. But I do think if you're a fan, if you're somebody in that front office, if you're a member of that coaching staff, you would feel better about the way things are going if he ripped off a couple of excellent performances towards the end of the year here.
Yeah, basically you want then this is like abracadabra, Wizard of Oz stuff, but you want, cleaner pockets, as few hits as possible on him, 300-yard performances, and then the other team to have a punt return is destroy your defense or whatever and still beat you.
Yeah.
You want to lose a bunch of shootouts.
Your defense just totally fall apart.
Yeah, just the defense just completely collapse and Levis look great and be at the top of the draft for whatever you may be doing there. Probably left tackle, but Marv Jr.
We're going to start getting into hey, if the Titans are picking at number 4 overall, should they take a left tackle or should they take Marvin Harrison Jr. or Brock Bowers? What do you think of that?
It's such a, it's just so pathetic that I actually just brought up the draft. Like, I need to stop doing that. I need to only talk about the draft when people ask us about it.
Which is going to happen many times from now until April.
Morning Show Michelle says Jeff Simmons to the O-line.
Well, maybe so.
I need to ask her how Ryan from Chicago is doing today after just an atrocious blown game.
Probably not well.
My God. Matt Eberflus. Oh.
He's going to get fired too. Jeff, we need you to play fullback, tight end, offensive line, and defensive tackle. Can you do that?
And I will say, that swim move and absolute annihilation of ETN yesterday was like, oh my. Yeah. At least he's out there doing some stuff.
Well, it was, we talk about the toll that the losing is taking right now on the team. Derrick Henry in the clip we played earlier in the show was talking about how, I don't really know what rock bottom feels like, but this is bad and it's not going very well. Jeff Simmons, on the other hand, like he's been vocal after some of these games. I think he's like run out of stuff to say. I mean, yesterday he was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say at this point. It's the same thing every week, which I have sympathy for.
But Jeff, I want another quote from you. Say something else, Jeff.
Apparently Trevor Lawrence this morning has catered Waffle House to the Jaguars front office on Victory Monday. The Jags Twitter account just put this out. That guy loves him some Waffle House.
Wow, that's very cool of him.
He looked pretty good yesterday.
I don't. Now I want Waffle House, and it's across the street from where I am right now.
Titans have a way of making quarterbacks look good so far this year. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good yesterday. Couple running touchdowns.
Yeah, that's the thing. Those running touchdowns, I was like, man. I mean, that was pretty good acceleration. I thought, from him. That team is, it's you're grading on a curve when you're playing a team as bad as the Titans, but they could be interesting in January.
13-4 in their last 17. The anti-Titans, 13-4.
3-14, 13-4.
That's right.
My goodness.
Coming up next, it's time for Pred's Pick to Click. Be the first caller, 615-737-1025, our phone number. If you guess a goal scorer for the Predators tonight, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that next. We'll look ahead to the Preds and the Avalanche coming up. Also take your final thoughts on the Titans and their loss to Jacksonville yesterday. All that ahead. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
It's time for Preds Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is that time of the day, time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds in action tonight, taking on the Colorado Avalanche. Puck drop at 7 o'clock, pregame at 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The standings in the competition are as follows. The listeners taking the lead last time out with 4 correct answers on the year. Joe Rexrode and Nick Keyser tied for second place with 3 correct answers apiece, and myself in last place with 2 correct answers on the season. With that in mind, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Ellen. Ellen, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators? Hello?
Hello?
Who is your pick to click for the Preds tonight?
Philip Scoresburg.
There we go. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Forsberg, very popular selection right now. Guy's playing well. Ran the numbers before the Chicago game on Saturday. He's on pace for about 98 points. So pretty popular pick. Pretty good stretch of games that Forsberg is on right now. Nick Keyser, Forsberg is off the board. Your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
Roman Josi, give it to me. He has had a lot of success against them the last 10 games or so. So give me the captain.
That was quick. Forsberg and Josi off the board. I am up next. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go Luke Evangelista. I think he finds a way to score one tonight on the power play. Joe Rexrode, Forsberg, Josi, Evangelista off the board. Your pick to click.
I mean, Yakov did get off the schneid.
He did.
That would be you can't count on that again.
Yeah, don't pick someone on the injured reserve this time, Joe.
Well, in fairness, Novak wasn't on the IR until
he wasn't on
show.
IR. Yeah, that's right. I didn't know that. You just take it easy over there, buddy. I'll go Victor Arvidsson.
Thank you, Cliff Ronning.
I'd like to. I'd like to get into Nick's time machine in various football games and hockey players. I will go. How about Cody Glass?
Ooh, Cody Glass.
How about Cody Glass? What do you think?
I like
Cody Glass?
I like it.
Okay.
Forsberg, Josi, Evangelista, and Glass. So selections in Preds Pick to Click. Brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Joe, Avs and Preds tonight. The return of Ryan Johansson, who's got 6 goals so far with Colorado. He's been very successful on their power play unit, playing with McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar. It's amazing how you can be successful playing with those guys. But look, I think this is a classic example, Joe, of 2 things being true at the same time. Ryan Johansson, during the last part of his tenure here, did not live up to the contract that he signed. And obviously Barry Trotz thought so as well, made the decision to buy out basically half his contract and then trade him to the Colorado Avalanche. Having said that, if you start to list off the best centerman in Preds franchise history, he's at number 1 on the list for me. I mean, just based on what he accomplished in a uniform here in the playoffs, the numbers that he put up. So I expect a warm reception from Ryan Johansson tonight, and I'm sure that's what we'll see from the Nashville Predators faithful in the crowd tonight at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, I would definitely hope so. And 2 things true, I think, with both of those guys, Johansson, Duchesne. They didn't live up to their contracts, but also their roles here.
Yeah.
And they are at places where they can have lesser roles, and they're very and the bottom line is this: when you can go to a place and play with great players, teams that are actually contending level teams, it's a whole lot easier, right? And here they just couldn't carry a much weaker roster.
By the way, Matt Duchesne is on pace for 77 points this year. Just throwing that out there. 77 points.
He's become Brett Saberhagen. I hope someone out there gets that.
I don't.
Every other year is a Cy Young Award winner, and then the even years he's like awful.
We'll see what the Preds could do tonight. Big win for them on Saturday against Chicago. Nice to see them get back in the win column, and they'll try to hold off the high-powered Colorado Avalanche tonight with Rantanen, McKinnon, and McCarr all playing extremely well to begin the season. So a big challenge coming up tonight for the Predators as they take on the Avalanche. Joe, your final thoughts on the Titans, their loss yesterday to Jacksonville, 3-7. What's the path forward here from this group? You're in the locker room today, and you know that your season, in terms of reaching the postseason, for all intents and purposes, is over at this point. What's the path forward here for the Titans as they try to close out the season with 7 games remaining?
Well, I think at some point, maybe it's happened or maybe it needs to just happen more. I think at some point the conversation really is like, guys, I've been in this league, and I'm channeling Mike Vrabel right now. I've been in this league. I've thought I was cut. I've had to be a special teams guy to stay in this league. I've been traded, all that stuff. Like, this is where you are tested as a professional. You got to be a professional. And collectively, it matters to be part of the collective and do your best and do things that are unselfish to help the team. And also individually, you got to put good stuff on film and try to win a game. I mean, that's the mindset every week when things are going well or not. And that's the reason that's the mindset, because if your mindset every week is just try to win this football game, then that's your best path to trying to get consistency. Unfortunately, this team is consistently awful, but that's how you have to approach it. And they're going to keep trying to win. And look, by the way, they're 3-0 with pretty good numbers in Nissan Stadium. They're 0-7 with horrific numbers away from Nissan Stadium. So, I mean, the thing is, I could totally see a scenario where they blow out the Panthers. Like, they really could. They could blow out the Panthers, right, on Sunday. And it's like, wow. I mean, if this team just inverted the schedule, they'd be 8-4 if they had all these home games, and we'd be loving them. I'm just throwing stuff out there, trying to be positive. Thanksgiving's coming and all that. Don't
get excited.
Their cheeks.
That's going to do it for us today on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.